Here we are again. It is time for my worst books of 2024. We are full of negativity here today. But before we get full of negativity, I do want to say this list was actually quite difficult to put together. My 2024 reading overall was pretty good, and I gave out a lot of 3-star ratings. So anything under a 3-star was like obviously really bad, but I didn't have many under a 3-star. And not only that, but if it was under a 3-star, but it's the first book in a series, so I might continue that series, I don't think that counts as like worst book. So this is under a 3-star, but also this list doesn't make sense, is basically what I'm trying to tell you. I have some messed up logic for why these are my worst books of the year. Before I talk myself in circles, maybe we should just go through the list and I'll explain myself as we go. Just know that it was overall a really good reading year, and this list is quite little. Let's just get on with it. Coming in at number 5, I've only got 5 on my worst books list. Coming in at number 5, this is where my logic gets funky, because I was just about to say if I'm going to continue on the series it can't have been that bad. But number 5 on my list is Sunbringer, so immediately I'm breaking my own logic there. Sunbringer by Hannah Kay. Now this is book 2 in the God Killer series. I don't know what the series is called. The Fallen Gods trilogy. This is book 2 in the Fallen Gods trilogy. The first one is God Killer, sequel is Sunbringer, the third one is Faithbreaker, and I have pre-ordered it and will be reading it. But this got 2 stars from me. Hear me out. Why am I continuing? The premise. The premise of this series is so good. I'm so intrigued by the premise, but the execution is just not great. I'm not loving the storytelling, I'm not loving the writing, but the premise and the idea of it is just so good. So I'm continuing. Do you see my problem here? So God Killer, I think I gave God Killer 3 stars. It was fine, it was a debut. I let some things slide because it was a debut. Sunbringer, I had such faith would be so much better than God Killer. God Killer had such a good setup, this series was gonna go places, and then Sunbringer to me felt like God Killer again. We had the same sort of conflict, we had the same ending, like the big ending at the end of God Killer where it's like, oh my god, what, how did he, it was the same ending. Yeah, in a slightly different place, but it was the same thing again, and it just felt very repetitive, and like the story itself hadn't really gone anywhere from where we left it in God Killer. So, I will be reading Faithbreaker, because I still want to know how this series ends. Like, I felt the same way at the end of this that I did at the end of God Killer, and that is that the promise is there. There is so much potential for this to be fantastic. This just wasn't. But I need to know how the series ends. So I will be reading Faithbreaker, but I didn't love this at all, and it got 2 stars. The premise of the whole series, I should probably tell you that too, is it follows a god killer called Kissen. At the beginning of the first book, Kissen's family are put to death by a bunch of followers of a certain god, and Kissen turns her back on the gods because why has this happened to her? She grows up to then become a god killer for hire. The gods have been outlawed. Worshipping the gods is now illegal. Shrines will be destroyed. Gods can be killed. If you come across a god, you have to report it and the god will be killed. However, Kissen comes across a god that she cannot kill in the form of Skedi, who is a little god of white lies who is attached to a young girl called Inara. And there's then the question of how are they connected? Why are they connected? Why can't Kissen kill him? And so on. There is then lots of other things going on in this world with other gods rising and people secretly worshipping other gods. But the big thing at the end of God Killer just happens again in this, and it was just very much like, what was the point, you know? So that's why I'm saying this list has no logic. Okay, the next 4 on my list are all manga. And I feel really bad about that, but they are all manga that I read this year that I hated. So only one novel that I hated was pretty good going. So coming in at number 4, I have got Doomsday with My Dog. This was a very weird, not chronological story about a girl going through the apocalypse with her dog. Humanity is gone. She has her little Shiba Inu. So I thought I was gonna love it because I have my little Shiba Inu. He's sat behind me just here. And they are, you know, going through the world together through this apocalyptic landscape. It made no sense. There wasn't a chronological story to it. Each panel of the manga was a random story. It just didn't make any sense. Like, there was a gorilla at one point, and I think she fell in love with the gorilla or something, and it didn't make any sense. And then right at the end, something happened that absolutely broke my heart and made me cry. It's a book about a Shiba Inu. I have a Shiba Inu. It doesn't take a genius to work out what happens there. So I sobbed and bawled, but not because of the book. I just didn't like the book. It made no sense. Bit weird. No thank you. So Doomsday with My Dog, not continuing that one. Number 3 on my list is Noragami. Now, I don't think I ever spoke about this. I've gone through my core pile spreadsheet and seen that I gave this one 2 stars. But I don't think I ever spoke about it online. I don't think I ever mentioned it in a vlog. I can't really remember anything about it other than a girl is being bullied and she finds a phone number on a bathroom stall to, like, find someone that will help her, and he's like for hire to help her. But it turns out that he's some sort of god, and then he is like somehow bound to her and she has to help him because she made a deal with him. It reminded me a little bit of Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, but I love Toilet Bound and Toilet Bound is fun, and Noragami just confused me, but I can't remember a lot of it, and I literally read it like one random night. It was on Kindle Unlimited. I read it and I didn't like it, so I didn't continue. So not a great deal to say about that, I'm afraid. Number 2 on my list is Yu-Gi-Oh! I read this in my Jadeyraereads of manga, where I found my new favourite manga and one of my least favourite mangas in Yu-Gi-Oh! I have been told that the TV series, the anime of it, and the books are very different, and that the manga does change direction a little bit, but I don't particularly care. I don't want to like redeem it. I didn't like it. It was weird. He solves a puzzle box that gives him some sort of power, and then he basically turns into a wannabe Jigsaw from the Saw movies. Play a game with me, and then he just beats people half to death. People that deserve it, supposedly, but I just didn't get it, didn't like it, had a terrible time, will not be continuing with Yu-Gi-Oh! And then number 1, my worst book of 2024 was Goblin Slayer. Again, a manga, and I hated it so very much. It was basically how much sexual assault and violence can we smush into one volume of manga that doesn't necessarily have to be there because it's not doing anything for the plot. It's just how much can we get in. And I have since discovered that Goblin Slayer has led to a lot of other problematic things. It was unnecessary, and I think that's all there is to it. I can maybe understand having an initial instance that propels the story forward because our 2 characters have to meet somewhere, but it was too much, unnecessary, didn't add to the plot, just felt like they wanted to put more of it in, and I hated it. Made me so uncomfortable, so good riddance to Goblin Slayer. Absolutely, get out. And that's my worst books. They are my 2-star and under reads. Obviously Goblin Slayer can literally get in the bin, 0 star, negative stars if we can do that. But they're all the ones that got 2 stars or less from me this year, excluding A Time of Dread by John Gwynne, because I'm going to continue that series, and it's the first book in the series, and I did like elements of it, so I definitely liked A Time of Dread more than, for example, I liked Sunbringer, so I'm not putting that in a worst books list, but honourable mention of a kind, I guess. And a couple more honourable mentions just to round out with some other books that I didn't like but somehow still scraped 3 stars on Core Pile. I have got The Winterhouse Mysteries, which is the 3rd and final book of the Winterhouse series by Ben Gutterson. Supposedly a cosy, wintry mystery, a little bit supernatural, a little bit eerie, lots of puzzles. I really liked books 1 and 2. This one had a very different tone. I did not have a fun time. It's not even set at winter, it's set at Easter. So I went into this expecting one thing and basically got something very different. It was a slog to get through. Did not have a fun time with the last one, but the first 2 are really good, so honourable mention in that. Another honourable mention is one that I will be unhauling at some point, which is The Nature of Witches. This one did get 3 stars, but according to my Core Pile spreadsheet, it's one of the lowest 3 stars I gave in 2024, so although it got the 3 star, very low, so just a little honourable mention that I didn't love this one, which sucks. And then another very low 3 star from the year was Mooncakes. Didn't particularly care for this, but not gonna dwell on it. I know a lot of people loved this, but I just didn't feel anything with these characters or anything at all, so yeah. And that's all I've got for you. I feel like I don't really have a lot to say for bad books, which is a good thing, because for the most part, as I say, I've mostly rated 3 stars or above all year, which is fantastic. So even the books that I have considered bad have still been, like, medium bad, or will continue, or there've been mangas that haven't taken me very long to get through anyway, so I haven't wasted an awful lot of time, and I just won't continue those series. Which, I mean, I guess is a shame in terms of your viewing, because I don't have, like, a big salty negative video to share, but my best books video was so much longer, had so much more in it, and you know what, I would much rather it be that way. So this has been a tiny little worst books of the year video, and fingers crossed all worst books videos can be this length in future and I don't waste my time with books I don't read. I haven't included any DNFs on this list, so for example, I DNF'd Fourth Wing, probably would have been one of my worst books, but I DNF'd it, so I'm not counting it, and that is fine. What else have I DNF'd? I DNF'd Shogun, but I don't know, because I DNF'd that pretty early, so I don't really have much to say on that. I DNF'd The Daughter of Dr. Moreau, but I don't know, because I DNF'd it. So I haven't included those. I feel like this has been a really messy, rambly video because I just don't have much for you. So yay for that. Alright, I'm gonna shut up and disappear. Hopefully you've seen my best of the year video. If you haven't, I encourage you to go and watch that, where I have a whole lot more to say about books that actually deserve the time of day to be spoken about. Otherwise, I'm gonna go. Thanks for hanging out for this tiny little snippet of time, and I will see you in tomorrow's video, which is my surprises and disappointments of the year. So they weren't the best of the best, they weren't the worst of the worst, so where a lot of those 3-star territory books kind of come in. Okay, alright, I'll see you there. Bye!